Hi, hello, salut, bonjour. I hope you're doing very well from wherever you're watching at this moment. As always, it's a privilege for me to connect with you as we try to make sense of what's going on around the world, specifically in the Republic of Cameroon, where we shine a spotlight on the issues affecting the nation after the presidential elections that took place on October 12. Speaking of the spotlight we need to continuously shine on Cameroon, I can inform you that Project C, otherwise known as Project Cameroon, headed by veteran Eric Chinje and a host of others, have written an open letter to the Pope, to Pope Leo XIV, informing him of the actual state of affairs in Cameroon, describing in detail the gross irregularities, malpractices, fraud, and electoral manipulation that has led to the proclamation of President Biya as the President of Cameroon, requesting that the Pope should not come to Cameroon at this time. The letter goes on to enumerate the various instances in Cameroon history when members of the clergy have been victims of the repressive regime in Yaoundé, and how some have even lost their lives, assassinated, tortured, and even chased away because they dared to speak truth to power, because they called out the corruption, because they called out the many ills that they witnessed. And in so doing, they were able to ask the Pope to make sure that he has a direct one-on-one with the nuncio, the apostolic nuncio who just recently visited Bamenda. Because for the people sitting in that church, in that cathedral, to boo or to be murmuring when the name of President Paul Biya was mentioned is a clear sign that even the church, those in attendance, the priest, the reverend sisters, and all those lay faithfuls, they know the truth and have rejected that President Paul Biya is not their president. And befitting enough, on this very platform, in my previous video, I was able to dissect the situation of the church, and it all bodes well that Project C has written to the Pope in an official capacity with a lot of details, explaining and detailing the skeleton of the Cameroonian political landscape, opening all the cupboards, all the drawers, and showing the things that I'm sure the regime in Yaoundé does not want the Holy Father to see. But too late, the cat is out of the bag. Because just like the letter concludes, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. John 8 verse 32. You can't change it. The truth is the truth, and it ties in with the same thing Joseph Espoir Bion said, that the truth is the truth. It doesn't matter if the policeman is shooting. He knows the truth. And of course, Fr Ludovic Lado had already written a letter to the Pope, telling the Pope not to come to Cameroon, making it clear to the Pope that his coming to Cameroon during this particular period would only go a long way to legitimize an illegitimate government. And with this new outing by Project C, and the amount of detail and the way it's structured, there is no way the Pope can ignore the plight in Cameroon. Even if the Holy See cannot intervene in a direct manner, at least the Pope's Advisory Council would make sure that he doesn't step foot in Cameroon during this particular period until there is a lasting solution, an acceptable resolution to this political standoff. Because one of the most important things right now is to make sure that this letter gets to the Pope's table and that the Pope gets to read it. No one should intercept this letter. So Project C would have to make sure that the Pope actually receives this letter and reads it, and his privy council, his inner circle, can actually brief him on the content and the gravity of the situation in Cameroon. And that is why all your voices need to continue to be amplified. An update from Batibo in the northwest region of Cameroon, where a reverend from the Presbyterian Church is seen to be very upset and really angry and expressing his frustration during a homily. For those who have not seen it, let's take a peek.
They know that what they did was wickedness and corruption. They know. I am from Batibo. I cannot imagine that during elections, the people of Batibo don't have to vote because of the separatists imposed lockdown. And at the end, they said 5,000 people voted in Batibo. It is not wickedness. It is not corruption in the highest order. And we do it that shame. And we move on and we say we are one. Wickedness. Wickedness.
Indeed, situations like this would only continue to multiply across the country because the frustration is too much. This victory is one too many, and the people are saying enough is enough. Yes, many already fear for the life of this particular reverend because the regime doesn't like this kind of show. They don't like this level of, lucidity. They don't like when people express themselves like this and call them out. Because that is why the regime likes to keep tab on everyone within the system. They make sure they have compromising information about you. They make sure they have dirt on you. They make sure they have access to areas where they can control you. And therefore, we are calling on all parishioners of the Presbyterian Church in Batibo to continue to stay vigilant and protect their shepherd. Although God will take care of him and take care of his own. But we do understand that it's human responsibility to do the needful, and God will handle the rest. Because we do know that the regime is allergic, doesn't like these kinds of reactions, doesn't like this kind of attention, especially within their area of jurisdiction. No. Because the only way this regime has been thriving in the last 43 years is because many Cameroonians have been staying on the sidelines. And today, Cameroon is the laughingstock of the world. There is no place you turn around and talk about Cameroon and people don't make a mockery or poke fun at you for having the oldest president. A president who doesn't know where he is on his own swearing-in ceremony. Because the only reason why the regime has been successful in getting away with all levels of impunity, all levels of some form of disregard for the people, is because many Cameroonians have lost interest in following up and paying attention on the matters that affect the state of the country. Many Cameroonians have been pushed into alcoholism, into all forms of promiscuity. And in the misery, people are more interested in getting their daily bread. That is why it's even difficult to operate a proper ghost town. Because people feel hungry, the next minute, the streets are empty. Before I talk about the next update, let me make this observation and ask a simple question at the end. As a peace-loving Cameroonian, you say you want change. During this election, you took the pains to register to vote. Even though you've heard about election malpractice, the bad electoral code, and all that, you mustered the courage. You registered to vote. You went and struggled to find your voter's card. You managed to find your way to your polling station and voted. You took the pains to return to monitor your vote. And yet, the results that were tallied and called out in your polling station that showed the candidate you voted for won the elections. Might I quickly add that your dismay at the proclamation of results made by the Constitutional Council that proclaims a different candidate as the winner is not based on the fact that you naively think that just because a candidate won in your particular polling station, that same candidate won nationwide. No, far from it. Your dismay is based on the fact that everywhere you turned on that same day when the results were being counted, you could see evidence of fraud, malpractices, and all kinds of ballot stuffing, and even change of results. And you could see from different parts of the country. And you could hear from your neighbors. You could hear the echoes around your region. And you were able to figure out that change is what the majority of Cameroonians voted for. And to make matters worse, a few days later, you see a video surface showing the president of the Constitutional Council toasting to champagne and saying clearly that they are all gathered here happy and celebrating because he, their father, made it possible for their candidate to win. And not only that, you see videos of Cameroonians like you that went to the street to protest and ask for their victory to be restored. And you see them shot at, arrested, tortured, jailed. And you sit at home watching carefully because you're a peace-loving Cameroonian. Not only that, a call comes that you should stay at home and observe your ghost towns. You stay at home. You don't go out because you were blamed when you went out to protest. You were chased and sent home. That you constituted a group of drug addicts, assailants, that went around looting and breaking people's businesses and burning places. And you sit at home trying to observe your ghost towns. And then your neighbor, their shop is sealed because they did not come to do business. Fast forward, you hear about another neighbor arrested and taken to Yaoundé to appear before a military court. What do you think is your fate? If you sit and wait for Issa Tchiroma to tell you what to do, what do you think is your fate? It's a legitimate question I'm asking every Cameroonian right now sitting in Cameroon. What do you think is your fate? Because the people in Yaoundé and those that are benefiting from the cake that is being shared, those people don't care about you. You don't matter. It's just a matter of time before you are next. And this question right here, what do you think will be your fate, is a question that every Cameroonian should be asking themselves on a daily basis. Because those that were arrested, tortured, and detained are not different from you. They're not different from me. They're all Cameroonians. And it's because many Cameroonians haven't yet come to terms with the fact that this regime will stop at nothing to defend this proclaimed victory. And that explains why you are yet to see a new government put in place. Because there is already infighting among themselves. There are those who say they are the ones that made this victory possible, and therefore they deserve to be in the new government. And yet, the speech that was read during the inauguration talks about the mandate being that of youth and women. How are you going to include the youth and women in your new government, whereas the old guard is saying they are responsible for making this victory possible? And that is only one reason that explains why, close to 2 weeks after an inauguration, in a country that is going through all kinds of problems, yet the president has been unable to form a new government. What is he doing? Where is he? Right now, Cameroonians need to wake up from slumber because the regime wants you to drink that alcohol and go to sleep. But we're telling you, now is the time to only drink water. You need to be as lucid, as sharp-minded as a monk. Because the things that are happening around you, if care is not taken, you won't be able to answer that question. What do you think is your fate? Because even the ongoing tug of war between FECAFOOT, headed by Samuel Eto'o, and the Ministry of Sports, headed by Professor Samuel Eto'o, is not enough to distract a very lucid mind. That whole thing about whether Samuel Eto'o is trying to change the bylaws of FECAFOOT, or has already changed the bylaws of FECAFOOT and also chased away everyone so that he can be the only candidate to represent himself during his re-election that is scheduled again for the end of this month, somewhere around Bankomo. The Minister of Sport is not happy and has written to stop that particular General Assembly. And he has already CC'd the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Biya, to obstruct that AGM from taking place. And everyone is waiting to see if Paul Biya is going to actually stop Samuel Eto'o from holding his General Assembly that would lead to his own re-election. And by the way, he's the only candidate standing for the post of president. He's been accused of sidelining everyone and being the lone candidate. And we can say that is rich, coming from a minister that just participated in an election wherein a candidate like Professor Moise Kamto was dismissed, clearing the way for no viable opposition. And even when the people decided to choose Issa Tchiroma, the regime still found a way to change the numbers and make sure that the result doesn't favor an opposition candidate. How is that different from what is going to happen at the FECAFOOT? So, it's very rich to hear the minister try to cite all levels of irregularities. Of course, by saying this, no one is condoning the fact that two wrongs make a right, or saying that if the FECAFOOT president has actually abused his office to be the only candidate, that it should be condoned because Issa Tchiroma election was stolen. No, far from it. We're just saying that football has some different rules and FIFA is there to sanction. And we've seen it many times in FIFA where the president himself is the only candidate that goes in. We've seen that with CAF. President, the only candidate that goes in. We don't yet understand how the world of football works. Sometimes you will scratch your head and ask yourself, what is going on at the level of FIFA? What is going on at the level of CAF? And therefore, if FECAFOOT is going in that same direction, what do we know? But the most we can tell you is that Samuel Eto'o has publicly said he supports President Paul Biya wholeheartedly. In fact, his name appeared among the names of those that were supposed to go and conduct campaigns in his native land. And he was there at the Unity Palace, as you saw. He even had one of the longest chats with the president when he came to shake hands. And of course, we've seen reports where some Cameroonians who look up to Samuel Eto'o, as well as Rigobert Song and all the other icons that were at the Unity Palace to shake hands, wine and dine with the regime, show that they are disappointed. Again, they don't understand why these icons would choose to support this system. But one should not be naive to know that to each their own. And yes, as long as they don't stand in the way of the everyday Cameroonian who is trying to fight for change and wants to see things differently. Some people may make political calculations that may backfire. But again, the days ahead will tell us. But for the everyday Cameroonian, one should always remember that one of the collateral damages of democracy is that some people would always choose the other side. And when that happens, one has to only respect their wishes and desires, for as long as it doesn't interfere with the path to justice and truth. Because the regime may have been able to silence all dissent and seize power, but it seems that they are unable to use that power. And now they are sitting on it, contemplating what to do with it. because the people can see through all the quacks, all the cracks. And every single day that passes, more and more atrocious acts are taking place. Even though the international community is sitting silent and some key actors are coming on the sidelines trying to issue congratulatory messages that have been watered down, the Cameroonian people are not ignorant. They are educated enough and awakened. And they know that this mandate is not going to be easy. No matter how the regime tries to calm things down, no matter what promises they've made to some opposition leaders about the possibility of them joining the government, because that explains why you will see people like Cabral Libi, Joshua Osei sitting quietly. Don't be surprised that in the near future, whenever this regime finally succeeds to be able to put out a new government, if at all they'll ever be able, because like we've told you, it's not possible. There's already a lot of infighting taking place, and it's not going to be easy. Maybe the regime itself will collapse on inside. The infighting will be so strong that they will be the first to expose everything to the limelight. We are observing, we are waiting. And as we conclude this piece, once again, we continue to highlight the importance of all Cameroonians, home and abroad, to stay vigilant and continue to lend their voice to this process. There's a lot at stake, and the regime doesn't like the spotlight, because that is how many things get exposed, and therefore they panic. And as we've told you before, within the ranks of the CPDM, within the ranks of the military, within the College of Ministers, all is not well. And Cameroonians can feel it, because even the measures that the government is taking, we hear of a communique calling on people to come at Boulevard du Verme in Yaoundé to come and buy, basic necessities at very cheap prices. And you'll be shocked that majority of the things that will be sold there, none of them are made in Cameroon, all imported. While Cameroonians expect the government to take measures to make sure that Cameroonians can consume made in Cameroon, there should be some incentive to encourage locally manufactured products. There should be investment in farm-to-market roads. There should be investment in stable electricity. Those are the basics if the government intends to make Cameroonians turn the page on this election fiasco. But yet, they do everything except that which the people want. Lasting solution, lasting peace, and justice before peace. But we do know that it's not an easy feat to oust a regime that has been in office for 43 years. And we just hope and pray that as Cameroonians continue to shine a spotlight on the issues that they are facing under this regime, that somehow the regime gets an epiphany and decides to do the right thing. Call for an independent inquiry into this election. Find a way to bring all the stakeholders on the table and kind of resolve fundamental issues and restore dignity and honor to the electoral process in Cameroon, and give honor to whom honor is due by making sure that the results of the ballot box are respected. Short of that, we would continue to see what we're seeing. And therefore we pray that the situation should not get so worse that Cameroonians lose more lives. We don't want to see that. And until the next one, may God bless Cameroon.